Hello, and welcome back to the Compassionate Curiosity Podcast, a space where we explore the messy, beautiful, challenging project of being human. I'm your host, Rachel, a women's wellness coach and yoga and mindfulness teacher at Tranquilo Pa Wellness. And here in this space, we dive into the stories we carry about food, movement, our bodies, stress, and self worth, sharing tools, reflections, and lived experience to help you soften the pressure, reconnect with your body, and create more space in your life to breathe, rest, and just be. All guided by curiosity and grounded in compassion. And if you're not already following the show, take a quick second here to hit follow so you never miss a new episode. And I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Today, we're diving into something so important. Well, I feel like everything we talk about here is so important, but I think this topic might just be one of the most important ones we touch on. And that is understanding why your emotions are such essential parts of your human experience. How to begin allowing yourself to truly feel them, all of them, and why that matters. So you might be wondering why this is so important. And to start off, our emotions are the ultimate guides in our lives. They're what's behind every action, every pattern, every behavior, and they're linked hand in hand with every thought. They're messengers that long for our love and attention. They're the most beautiful gateways to knowing and experiencing our true selves. So that's no small thing, right? When we look at them this way. Yet, interestingly, for so many of us, these very same powerful emotions, especially the heavier or more uncomfortable ones, are avoided at all costs, pushed away, labeled as bad, seen as weakness. So, why is that? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into today. We're going to dive into why and how connecting with your emotions is so powerful, why we so often get disconnected from them, and then we'll look at one awesome, accessible tool to help you start getting back in touch with these dynamic parts of yourself. So, are you excited to dive into this? I feel that yes coming from you, and that is the same for me as well. So, before we dive in, I want to invite you, as always, to join me in a moment of slowing down our bodies, slowing down our minds, to come back to our natural, steady state of being, to reconnect with our true self energy. And so, if you're safe and able to right now, I invite you to find a comfortable position. Maybe that's seated, lying down, maybe you're just standing up, just meeting yourself where you are right now, and then gently closing your eyes if that's accessible right now. And let's start by just connecting to the breath. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose and let out a long breath through your nose, completely emptying your capacity. And do a few more rounds of this deep breathing in and out, seeing if you can follow the flow of the breath as it moves in through your nose and all the way back out. Just noticing any sensations that come up. And then just let your breath settle into its natural rhythm, however that is right now. Just allowing, just observing, just witnessing your breath. And now I want to invite you to shift your attention to the back of your neck and your upper shoulders. Just noticing what's there. Maybe you're noticing you're holding tension or tightness or pain. Just noticing first and holding the space for that. And now let's go ahead and tilt your head to the right, bringing your right ear toward your right shoulder. And just noticing any sensations in your neck as you do so. And then let's switch sides. So bringing your left ear toward your left shoulder. Coming back to center and bringing your chin down to meet your chest. And then tilting your chin up. Doing this a few times at your own pace. Maybe a few neck rolls, whatever feels intuitive to you right now. And let's maybe give ourselves a little bit of a massage as well. That feels pretty intuitive to me right now. And then let's take one more deep breath in through the nose. And let out a long breath through the nose. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes and coming back to this space. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's start off by looking at what an emotion actually is. And actually, I want to pause for a second here because while we often use the words emotion and feeling interchangeably, they're not quite the same thing. In many definitions, emotions are seen as the body's automatic biological responses, like a wave that starts in the body. And they tend to show up in the nervous system before we're even fully aware that they're there. They show up as sensations in the body, like a tightening in your chest, a rush of heat. Feelings, on the other hand, are how we mentally label and make sense of those emotional experiences. So they're the conscious interpretation of those emotions. They're the meaning your mind assigns to the bodily sensations. Like, oh, I feel anxious. I feel embarrassed. I'm so frustrated right now. For the sake of this episode, though, I'm going to use the word emotions as kind of an umbrella term, referring to the whole internal experience, both what's happening in your body and how you become aware of it. Because what really matters here, I think, isn't necessarily the label. It's the invitation to slow down, listen to what's coming up inside, and allow space for what's there. So, one definition that beautifully captures this mind-body relationship comes from Joe Dispenza. When I first heard it, it really resonated with me and stuck with me. And it's what I often refer back to when I support others in exploring their emotions. He says, thoughts are the language of the brain, and emotions are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel create your state of being. So let's unpack that a bit. As we mentioned, an emotion is at its root a pattern of energy in the body expressed as a sensation. So, what causes that sensation? Well, sometimes emotions are triggered by a thought. For example, if you think, I'm going to mess this up, your body might respond with a flood of stress hormones like cortisol or adrenaline, which you experience as anxiety or panic, right? An emotion. And that might be felt in the body as tension in your forehead, a burning in your stomach, your palms sweating. So that's the brain communicating with the body, language of the brain becoming language of the body. But emotions don't always start with a thought, right? They can arise from a sensory experience, a past memory stored in the body, or even another person's energy or expression. Still, once an emotion is present, no matter how it began, it can shape the thoughts that follow, and it can create other emotions, which then influence how you act and behave. This is where the thought, emotion, action cycle comes in, which we've touched on in earlier episodes. It's a loop that we often get stuck in without realizing it. And when that loop keeps running on repeat, same thoughts, same emotional reactions, same behaviors, that literally becomes your life, the way you see the world, the way you treat yourself, the way you move through your day. It shapes your patterns, your relationships, your choices. And unless we become aware of it, we're just living out the same internal script over and over again. So just with that alone, we can see how much power and potential emotions have in our lives, right? They directly shape how you experience life and are deeply connected to who we are as human beings. They're 100% integrated in our experience of life as human beings. And just as we can see how powerful emotions themselves are, it also makes sense then that how you relate to and respond to and tend to them is just as powerful, right? So, as a quick, curious, and compassionate check in, I invite you to ask yourself right now, how do I relate to or tend to my emotions? Do I have a tendency to ignore them? Do I feel they're not important or that others' emotions are the priority, but not my own? Do I not know what I feel most of the time? Do I have a tendency to distract myself from the heavy emotions? Do I sit with them, befriend them? Whatever your answer is right now is okay. We want to welcome that in and just start building awareness. And let's look at some of those possible answers. It's actually incredibly common for us to run from what we feel, sometimes without even knowing we're doing it, usually as a protective mechanism or response. And if we don't run from them, it's common for us to not know what we feel exactly. And it's also incredibly common to want to change or fix the heavy, uncomfortable emotions. So, why is that the case? Why are these things so incredibly common? I think for a few reasons, and I want to look at a few of those reasons with you. One, most of us aren't taught how to notice, acknowledge, or express our emotions. And the people we learn from, our caregivers, teachers, etc., likely weren't taught either. Emotional literacy just wasn't modeled for many of us growing up. Two, some emotions like anger, sadness, fear have been labeled bad or inappropriate or unacceptable or too much or you name it. And when that happens as kids, we internalize that message and we developed protector strategies to help us suppress or avoid feeling those emotions in order to maintain our attachment, acceptance, and safety. And this is all despite all emotions being totally human and normal. And another reason is that because we've learned to view certain emotions as bad, once we give an emotion that kind of meaning, when we do experience it, we tend to experience it as something threatening or painful, rather than just allowing it to be a raw sensation in the body. So that judgment that this is bad, this shouldn't be here, adds a layer of suffering. So now we're not just feeling that core emotion, we're also feeling our fear of it, our shame about it, our urge to escape it. And that makes us want to avoid it even more, to get away from the discomfort that's now attached to it. So if we've been told certain emotions aren't okay, and we haven't been given the space or tools to explore what we feel, it makes total sense why we'd end up so disconnected from such a big part of ourselves as human beings. But here's the beautiful part. Even if we've learned to disconnect or suppress, our emotions haven't stopped trying to speak to us. They're still showing up, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly, not to sabotage us, but to support us. So Let's now look closer at how exactly emotions work as messengers and explore the kind of messages that they might be carrying. One way to look at emotions is to see them as guides to check in with a part of yourself that's in need of support. In other words, emotions can reflect whether or not our needs are being met. Needs like safety, connection, autonomy, rest. For example, anxiety might reflect a need for safety or reassurance. Frustration might reflect a need for clarity or movement. Loneliness might reflect a need for connection or belonging. So emotions often tell us, hey, something here needs care and attention. But there's more to this because emotions don't always tell the whole truth, even if they feel intense or urgent. So, what do I mean by that? Let's say, for example, you text a friend and they don't respond to you for a couple of days. In that case, you might feel rejected, abandoned, anxious. All of those emotions are very real and valid, and they might be pointing to a need for connection, reassurance, or to something unresolved from your past that's still impacting how safe you feel today. But your emotion in that moment, while valid, may not be telling you the full story, right? Maybe your friend was overwhelmed. Maybe they lost their phone. Maybe they just needed space. And so this is the idea where emotions are data, not directives, comes in, meaning that they carry valuable information about how we're experiencing something, but they aren't always instructions we have to follow or truths that we have to believe. They don't always tell you the truth about external reality, but they do tell you something true about your internal world. For example, they can tell you what matters to you, what you might be needing, what past stories or patterns are being activated, or how safe your nervous system feels in the moment. So they're more like starting points for curiosity, not necessarily a final answer. So if you've ever felt confused or unsure, like, if I can't fully trust my feelings, then how do I know what's real? You are definitely not alone in that. This is where self-awareness, reflection, and self-compassion come in. Instead of reacting right away, we can get curious. What is this emotion maybe trying to tell me? What need might be underneath it? Is this feeling familiar from the past? Is there another possible explanation? And you don't have to have all the answers, right? The goal isn't to judge or fix the feeling. It's to be in a curious, compassionate relationship with it. And when we really listen without trying to control or push away, we give our emotions space to speak up and the chance to be heard. So, to sum up, emotions might be trying to tell you something I need might be missing. Something about this situation feels familiar or threatening to me, even if it's not objectively unsafe. Or there's something inside me that wants to be seen, heard, or held right now. And so when we take a step back, we start to see that emotions aren't just shaping how we live and respond in each moment, they're also pointing us inward. They don't just influence our experience, they inform it. They carry insight, they carry meaning. So they're not fleeting annoyances or inconveniences to avoid or override. They're real, meaningful messengers, reminding us of what matters, what hurts, what we need, and what's asking to be seen. Which is why it becomes so important not just to notice our emotions, but to allow them to be expressed, to give them space, to let them coexist alongside of us instead of exiling them. Because when we allow what's there to be there, when we stop fighting ourselves, we give ourselves access to so much more than just emotional release. For example, we gain clarity around our unmet needs, right? Again, your emotions may be signaling that something vital is missing, like safety, connection, rest, space. We gain insight into our internal experience, right? They can reveal how you're interpreting the world through your past experiences and your current nervous system state. We also gain a pathway to physical and emotional regulation. Suppressed emotions don't just go away, they get stored in the body because emotions are biological events. They're patterns of energy. They impact your heart rate, your muscle tone, your breath. So when we don't allow that emotional energy to move through us, it doesn't just disappear. It can settle into the body as tension, fatigue, restlessness, shallow breathing, or just the sense of being off without knowing why. You may have heard the phrase, emotions are energy in motion. And while it's often used as a metaphor, it's rooted in truth. Emotions want to move. They are real physiological energy patterns in the body. They're meant to move, not stay stuck. And when we let them move, that's when the nervous system can start to soften. That's when we come back into balance, into regulation. Another thing we gain is deeper self-trust and emotional resilience. Every time you stay with an emotion, you build trust with the part of you that's been holding that emotion. You're saying, I'm here, I see you, I'm not leaving, and you don't have to carry this alone. And lastly, but probably most importantly, allowing your emotions to come through serves as a beautiful reminder of who you really are. When you see and experience emotions as messengers and sensations in the body, you're reminded that you yourself are not those emotions, not your thoughts for that matter either. You experience these things, you feel their energy, they pass through or get stuck. They are a part of you, but they are not who you are in your essence. Your true self is the spaciousness that holds all of your experience. You, the true you, my dear, are the boundless, limitless vastness that's made of love and compassion, joy and connectedness, and is open and accepting to every single part of you, heavy emotions and all. And we're reminded of our true selves when we allow the full spectrum of our experience to come through. When we notice, allow, and express our emotions, we are doing so from our true self, space, and energy. So, if you've stuck with me through this and are gaining some insight into your own current relationship with your emotions, and you're asking yourself, okay, these messengers seem pretty damn important, and I want to start tuning into what they have to say to me. But how exactly do I start this allowing process? How do I let myself feel my emotions? What does allow my emotions to move through even mean? And how do I start doing this without getting totally overwhelmed in the process? All beautiful questions, and all questions I have asked myself and continue to ask myself, and all questions that more often than not continue to be answered not through the mind, but through the wisdom of the body. And so I want to share with you one tool that has been so incredibly helpful in my own life and in the lives of women I support when we dig into emotional awareness. And this is the emotion alarm check-in, which has two key steps. Step one is to choose a time of day, set an alarm with it named emotion alarm, and when it goes off, take 1 to 2 minutes to reflect on, how do I feel right now? The moment you ask yourself that question, you start the allowing process. Coming back to how I defined allowing in episode 34 on self-love, which I'd invite you to go back to and listen to if you haven't already, to allow is to be open to whatever is there. So By asking yourself, how do I feel right now? You are opening yourself to receive the answer, whatever that might be. So see if you can name what you're feeling in that moment. Maybe you're able to pinpoint it right off the bat, or maybe you have no idea. Either way, that is okay, because step 2 helps you define and expand on that. So step 2 then is to ask yourself, if you were able to name what you're feeling, okay, how do I know I'm experiencing said emotion, right? Or if you didn't know in that moment what you were feeling, in both cases, the answer lies in dropping into the body and asking, what do I sense in my body right now? Okay, and so how do I do that? You do this by doing a simple head to toe body scan. This means closing your eyes, shifting your attention to the top of your head, and slowly moving your attention downward. And if that feels overwhelming or inaccessible to you, you can start by just checking in with 3 body areas: your head, your chest, and your abdomen. And just making note of any sensations in those areas: tingling, tightness, tension, heat, cold, restlessness, anything. You're just noticing what's there. When you bring your awareness to what's there, whatever it is, again, you are allowing. You are open and allowing. That is the process. It can also be helpful to jot these emotion alarm reflections down on paper, because you can start to pick up on patterns like, okay, I see stress written down a few times and noted as felt in my body as a headache or tightness in my jaw. And I want to take a minute here to highlight just how helpful it is to notice where and how you experience an emotion in your body. Because it might not seem like a big deal, but tuning into where and how an emotion lives in your body can be one of the most powerful skills you can build that strengthens your self-awareness and emotional resilience. And here's why. When you can locate and name sensations, you step out of autopilot mode. You're creating a separation. And in that separation and pause, space opens up for you to choose how you respond to your experience. Another reason is that it can be easier to calm your system when you know where the emotion lives in your body. Narrowing in on this location actually provides you with a doorway for regulation. For example, you can breathe into the area you've noticed the emotion is in, or you can relax the muscles in and around that area. Another reason this is incredibly powerful is because noticing time and again helps you recognize patterns. And this helps you get to know yourself better. It helps you recognize your emotions sooner and helps build trust in yourself to interpret your inner world. And because you're observing the emotion in your body, it helps you meet that emotion with more neutrality, bringing curiosity instead of judgment into the picture. Observing usually makes it easier to meet yourself with compassion and curiosity instead of judgment. So it's incredibly valuable to notice, allow, and observe emotions in the body. And so there you have it, my dear. The how to and why behind allowing your emotions. And so let's wrap up by touching on a few key points to walk away with today. First of all, your emotions aren't random or wrong or anything to be fixed. They are messengers that offer insight and ask for connection. And yes, sometimes they might feel big or uncomfortable or confusing, but they're not there to hurt you. They're there to support you, to point you towards something that matters, whether that's a need, a wound, a value, or just a part of you that wants to be seen or held or heard. And even if you've spent years avoiding or numbing or overriding what you feel, I want you to know that that's okay. that has been your nervous system protecting you in the best way it knew how. So there is no shame here. And there's absolutely no wrong way to begin reconnecting with yourself, with your emotions, with the parts of you that are ready to be seen. And that's really what I hope this episode leaves you with, a sense that coming back to your emotions isn't about doing it in any particular right way. As with almost everything, it's about being curious. When we are curious, we are open. And when we are open, we allow. And when we allow, we grow. And you are worthy of that. So, wherever you are right now in your relationship with emotions, whether you're just starting to notice them or you've been sitting with them for years, I see you, I'm with you, and you're doing beautifully. So, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that this has been helpful. If this episode brought you insight or comfort, I'd love if you'd share it with a friend or left a quick review. That means so much, and it helps this message reach more people who need it. And as always, you're invited to join us inside the Compassionate Curiosity community, which is my free email space for deeper reflection, insight, and connection around themes like emotional healing, body trust, and self-compassion. And if you're looking for more support, whether you're feeling stuck in cycles of emotional overwhelm, disconnection, or you're just not sure how to start this whole feel your feelings process without getting lost in them, I offer a few free Breathe Again breakthrough sessions every month, which is a gentle, supportive space for us to explore what's keeping you stuck or shut down and how you can move forward with more ease, clarity, and connection to yourself. And you'll find the link in the show notes as to how to access all of that. And I want to thank you again so much for your openness and your curiosity today and for joining me. And until next time, my dear, may you know that you are not alone. I am here with you. May you be guided by curiosity and grounded in compassion, sending you love, light, and gratitude today and always.